Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm not Richard.
On today's episode, we're going to be jumping into the real UA playtest number 8, starting off with the Monk. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, y'all. That's what he does, right? That's how you start
That's
this?
it. That's
All
how
right.
we go. So you may have noticed that Richard isn't here today. He had some things he had to take care of. So Garrett is actually graciously came down, joined me in studio, and he's going to be here for the couple of episodes here. And yeah, Watsy dropped the UA 8 for Monk, the Barbarian, and the Druid.
And a nice little handful of spells.
Yeah. And we're going to be discussing that over, the next episode or two. And wow, lots of cool stuff here. We're going to start off with the Monk because
I'm so excited to talk about this monk.
This is the reason we're really here. Let's be real.
Yeah, I really don't care about anything else. Let's just talk about the monk. Let's get it out of the way.
All right.
Tyler, I don't know if you know how much I love the monk and how I play monks all the time.
I actually didn't know you played monks all the time.
But I do. I play monks like almost every time I get to play D&D. I play like either a monk or a wizard. It's those two.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really excited about this update because playtest 6, the monk just kind of sucked, if we're being honest. I think everybody could see that when they looked at the monk there. It was just everything felt really out of whack and just felt disjointed and out of focus. And now it feels so much better. It feels like more streamlined. Everything feels correct. Like,
yeah.
It feels like they really nailed this one.
It's funny because the last one felt so weak to Richard and I almost wanted them to just try, like, okay, what if for once we just go back to the drawing board, we start this over completely. And this isn't necessarily that to me.
No.
But these are bigger swings in a really fun direction. And I mean, of course, we've got another year-ish before the books are officially released. I would play this right now. They could print this, and I'm good with most of it.
Yeah, I actually think it's probably closer than you think it is. I bet you the 2024 Player's Handbook will be the first one that drops. I'm expecting I'm expecting it to drop in the summer because what happened when they released the original Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, they released the Player's Handbook, I want to say somewhere around like June, if I remember correctly. And then a few months later, the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual dropped. So that's kind of how they've always rolled these out.
Right.
So I'm expecting maybe like a summer release.
Well, similar cadence there. Do you think they'll do like a gift set at the end again and all the people that bought the books earlier are like,
Probably probably months down the line. But I mean, listen, let's focus on what we got in front of us, which is what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
With the monk, right? I think that the main issue most people had, and this is going to sound like, well, the issue's everything, right? The 3 big issues the monk had were it lacked offense.
Yes, absolutely.
It lacked defense.
Yep.
And it was overly taxed on its resources.
I mean, I'll say part of 2. I'm like, well, you had your discipline points you could spend to bolster your defense, but your resources.
Right.
Yes.
Those were the 3 big issues.
Ooh, you burned through them so fast, especially early levels.
Right. And so how did Watsy address that in playtest 8? Well, by addressing all of it.
Yes.
It's so much better. Let's start with the offense. I mean, you see the return of monk weapons, right?
Yes. Wow. My goodness. I don't know why I didn't even expect it because I was like, they ruined it. It's never come back.
Yeah,
no,
weapons are gone.
Of course they did.
No, so the biggest issue that I don't know if enough people really outside of an optimizing community where people look at how do you maximize the damage on something, a lot of casual people maybe look at the monk and say, oh, you're not newing weapons. That's fine because I'm going to punch anyway. That's what the monk fantasy is.
Right.
Here's the problem with them lacking martial weapon proficiencies that they had in the 2014 book. If you go look at the feats and the new feats that Watsy has presented, a lot of the feats that require you to have a martial weapon proficiency as a prerequisite are the same feats that you would want to try and kind of boost your damage or to kind of do other things. A lot of people really like the Charger feat or Great Weapon Master. Obviously, Great Weapon Master is not going to work for Monk, but that's the point. Is
it's still a damage go-to.
Right. Those feats that people go to, Monk was just ineligible for because it didn't have martial weapon proficiency. Now they get martial weapons as long as the weapon has the light property, which is 2 weapons that you would think of as like monk weapons, short swords and scimitars. Totally makes sense. And then a 3rd weapon that people are going to be like, wait a minute, hand crossbows.
Yeah, that's the one I was waiting for.
Hand crossbows for monk is interesting.
Pew, pew,
yeah, if you want
pew.
that John Wick kind of gun kata, I think is what it's called in the movie.
This is absolutely what I'm gonna build.
Right, that's kind of what you can build now.
I think I even mentioned this to you. I played a rogue once, and I was like, 2 crossbows. You're like, later we'll talk.
Yeah. There's some issues about how you're loading those crossbows, but that's a different thing. Point being is that now monks qualify for those feats, which is really, really important.
Yeah.
And also having your martial arts die work with weapons is also really important.
Yes. Keep that damage up.
Now, as part of that, right, they said that they had to drop weapon masteries from the base class.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Sounds bad up front.
Right. So
until you get into the meat.
correct. And also we have to remember weapon masteries you can get with a feat or with a 1st level dip into fighter or rogue or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get weapon masteries on a monk still, even though it's not in the base class. At level 4, just take the weapon mastery feat. Get Nick on your scimitars, and now or on daggers even, because daggers have the Nick property, which means now you get an extra attack on top of all the other attacks monks get, and you're using martial arts die for it. I kind of get why they wanted to cut it, or because really what they're doing is making it a feat tax if you really want it, which is whatever, it's fine. On top of all of that, right, bonus action unarmed strikes now are decoupled from the attack action, which is really cool, because now you can do a lot of cool bonus action attacks up front.
Yeah.
And then move into your actual core actions. It just makes everything a lot smoother and a lot better. And it makes some subclasses a lot better when you can now like flurry of blows in front of your attack action. Like, so that's one way they kind of fixed the open hand monk, which I think was really bad in playtest 6.
Was not great.
It also wasn't really great. People have this weird love
for the old version.
And the old version's also bad. Like, it's not a good monk subclass. To be fair, almost none of the subclasses were very good.
That's why we need this change.
Right. But now the subclass is actually good. And it's weird because the subclass itself didn't see that many changes, right?
I was going to say, so reading through it myself, I wasn't noticing anything crazy.
If anything,
it's just most of this base class I love so much that I was like,
if anything,
it just enhances the angle you're going for with the subclass.
If anything, the hand subclass got worse because, Quivering Palm kind of got nerfed in a way. Yeah. And, in a way, Addle got nerfed from the 2014 version of it because it used to completely deny reactions. Now it just denies opportunity attacks. Some features got a little better, like Wholeness of Body, I think is what it's called. But also that feature sucks still. So it's whatever. Point being is like, the subclass itself almost kind of just got nothing but nerfs in 1 D&D. But it's so much better because of what the base class now does, which is having that decoupled bonus action, having free options, not having to do as much with your discipline points as they're now called, because now you can take all those discipline points and funnel them into Flurry of Blows, which is what that class kind of triggers off of anyway.
Yeah.
So in a way, they didn't really help that subclass numbers-wise. But they did help it by making the base class now work better with it, which is just so really cool.
Which I can't wait to look at this with the other subclass of the Shadow and stuff like that, because in 4 Elements or just those were, I really like those in the last test for the monk, and to see those with this new base class, man, it's gonna be a good class to play.
I think that Warrior of Shadow and Warrior of Elements was like the only good thing that the last subclass, or the last playtest rather, got right. And this base monk feels like it's going to fit perfectly at home with those.
Yep.
Some of those are now going to have to change a little bit. Like I can immediately think of the Warrior of Elements having some issues with resource management, for example. Like, for example, their 11th level ability, I think it was called Elemental Stride. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it allowed them to get a flying speed or a swimming speed whenever they take Step of the Wind. Well, now you can take Step of the Wind for free.
Yeah.
So that has to change. You're going to have to, it's going to have to change to say when you spend a discipline point on your Step of the Wind, then it makes more sense.
Which enhances your Step of the Wind. Because,
right.
Oh man, it's cool.
So fixing the attack, the offense of the monk, part of that is obviously that decoupling the bonus actions, and then part of it is giving them, heightened discipline, which they're getting at level 10, where now your Flurry of Blows is doing 3 attacks instead of 2 attacks, and now you can do them in whatever order you want, and it's just Stunning Strike now does damage whenever you're whenever you basically fail your Stunning Strike. So
when they
there's
pass
just
their save, they still take some damage.
exactly. There's just more damage output in this monk in multiple different ways. In a way to kind of illustrate that, actually, I really wanted to look at a popular Reddit post that's on the 1D&D subreddit right now by the user Game Maker, who kind of basically took a big look at some of the more popular optimized 1D&D builds for like the martial classes, the Berserker, the Eldritch Knight, the Mercy Monk, the Assassin Rogue, those types of things, put them up against popular 5th edition versions of the same thing, or of optimized versions of it, like they use the Zealot and the Battlemaster instead of the Berserker.
Lots
the
of
Eldritch
math way
Knight.
ahead of me.
Yeah, anyway.
They did it for us.
The point is they did all of the math for it, and the main highlights is that now when you look at the monk, especially like an optimized version of it with the Mercy Monk, you're looking at not only damage that is comparable to other martials, but in some ways is better in certain spots. It's really hard to read this chart because everything's very tight together. But you could see that the Mercy Monk, which is what a lot of people believe is like kind of like the best version of the monk, is really good in the first tier of the game, the first 4 levels. It kind of is a little bit behind other martials in 5 through 10 range, that kind of tier. And this is assuming no magic items, by the way. And then bumps up in tier 3 and 4, where it gets very competitive with the other builds and is now doing, I think that at level 20, their version of the Mercy Monk was doing 120 damage around, which is amazing. It's so much better. The old Mercy Monk, for by comparison, they included in here, was barely over baseline. It was doing like 40 damage. It's like almost a third, 3 times as much damage.
Yep.
That's
around
a huge increase for the monk. And it's funny because the monk's like always been a little better in tier 1, and then tier 2 is like whatever, and then tier 3 it just falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
This one is the opposite, right? Now in tier 2 it's like kind of lagging behind a little bit, but then it gets up there in tier 3 and 4, which is really what it needed. And a lot of that is just the extra unarmed strike from the flurry of blows.
So many attacks, so much versatility.
Right. It's such a welcome sight to see for the monk to now be, again, not the best damage dealer. It probably never should be the best damage dealer, but now it's at least competitive with the other ones.
It feels like monks, I mean, we haven't gone through everything yet, but it feels like monks are, like I mentioned, the versatility. You really can fit that power fantasy of a monk and do anything you want. Like, oh man, we'll get to it, but just physical attacks. Wow.
Oh, we want to talk about your defense a little bit?
Yeah.
So yeah, deflect attacks is so cool. Yeah, so we talked about offense a little bit, talking about the defense and the problem that I have. A lot of people had problems with monks because they don't have very good AC. Unarmored defense isn't really that good.
Yet, that's a level 20.
Right. They don't have very good AC early in the game, or in 5th edition at all. They never had good AC.
Yeah.
And I mean, to the point where like barbarians would put on medium armor because they're like, my unarmored defense is bad. Monks didn't get that choice. They had to be unarmored. And now their AC is still not that great, at least early in the game and until very, very late. And they're also have a D8 of hit die, which is like the lowest martial hit die in the game.
I'm surprised they didn't bump it to a D10 for this.
Well, but here's why they didn't. Because it doesn't matter anymore.
You never get hit.
Because not that you're gonna get hit, but the thing about it is now you have deflect attacks, which is formerly deflect missiles, right?
Yeah.
So starting at level 3, you can, as a reaction every turn, whether the damage is from a melee attack or a ranged attack, as long as it's bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, you can negate a whole D10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your monk level. At level 3, if you're building your monk correctly, you've got probably +3 in dexterity. That's a 3 on your monk level, so that's 6 damage automatically. A D10 averages out to be 5.5. So you're talking about negating almost 12 points of damage every turn. You're essentially giving yourself 12 extra HP.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just 12 extra HP once, it's every turn you're giving it to yourself. So as long as you're not getting hit with fireballs or anything like that, you're okay as far as your health is concerned. Another way that they kind of fix that is actually with heightened metabolism, which is, uncanny metabolism is what it's called now. It used to be called heightened metabolism, which is a level 2 feature that basically kind of lets them take a short rest at the start of a combat if they need to.
This one, moving down to level 2, was one of our biggest things for the last conversation we had.
It was a level 7 in the past
so
UA.
Far into your character. It didn't matter as much by then versus early level where it matters so much.
And so another thing that they did in this UA, specifically with this ability, the other version of it, right? You had to take a minute short rest anyway. You had to take like basically a little ritual. Here, it's just when you roll initiative.
Yep.
It doesn't use a bonus action, doesn't use an action.
Yep.
With the moment you roll initiative, you can decide, I'd really like to start this combat with a little bit more health and all my discipline points back.
Hey, DM.
That effectively means you've doubled your discipline points at every level of the monk progression. Right? You don't have 20 max at level 20. You have 40 because at any point in time, you can just be like, I have them all back.
Yep.
And you also are now getting some of your health back. You're getting your monk level plus a roll of your martial arts die whenever you do this. So you're also increasing your health in that way.
Yeah.
Between deflect attacks, at later levels, you're going to be able to do deflect energy, which now you can do it to all of your attacks except for force, I think. Is it except for force? Deflect energy. Any damage type. No, including force. So just any damage type now, you can give yourself this extra, basically, hit pool. And that's also not even talking about how patient defense now works, where patient defense at level 10, when you get your heightened upgrade, you're now also giving yourself temporary hit points whenever you use patient defense. So between that and the negated damage from the deflecting attack, and now the ability to heal yourself at the start of a combat, you really don't need anything more than the D8. Like, you've kind of already fixed your issues. In many ways, you're almost as good, if not better, at being a tank than like the fighter is.
It's interesting too, because you're so up in the fray. That's where I want like the D10.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm thinking of me having a smaller frame,
Sure, if you're thinking the monk fantasy.
If I'm thinking monk fantasy and I've got a smaller
also,
frame, I picture smaller hit die.
You also don't need to be just in the fray anymore, because before, right, you would have to spend a key point for 5th edition.
In and out.
Right, you'd have to spend a key point to disengage for free. But now patient defense allows you to disengage as a bonus action, no point required.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to, you can just run in, take a shot or two, run out, and you don't have to worry about it. Like,
right. Oh, that's very fair.
It's there's so many ways
holding off the front line.
Right. There's so many ways this monk can protect itself and its HP that it almost just doesn't matter that it's a D8. It almost could be a D6 and be fine. Not that you should do not nerf it. I'm just saying you can make a D8 work easily.
Yeah.
I also like, real quick before we move on from that.
No, of course.
They have taken the 3 main martial classes with barbarian, fighter, and monk.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of given them all a very different way of defending themselves, right? Your fighter is almost always, until maybe level 20, going to have the best AC of the 3 of them.
Right.
It's going to have heavy armor and it can have a shield. It's not uncommon for fighters at like tier 2 to have 20 plus AC. You're never going to see that on a monk or barbarian unless they have some broken magical items going on in here.
Really well.
Right. Yeah. And even then, it's not going to be that good. But with the fighter, you've got that really high AC. With barbarian, you've got the best hit dice, but you're also got resistance to most of the damage types you're going to do, depending on what type of subclass you chose. So with barbarian, they're not avoiding attacks from their armor class. They're just shrugging the damage off. They're still getting hit, and they're just like negating half the damage. And then monks now are
just taking it.
Right now, monks are like the opposite. Now monks, instead of brute forcing through damage, they're negating it through deflecting it or running away from it,
avoiding damage entirely.
Exactly. So it's like each of them has a different way of tanking or being in the front lines, and I really like that they made that kind of work instead of doing like the easy thing, which is just here's resistance for the monk or here's AC for the monk, because that's kind of already handled by other people.
It's a fun little like game of chess almost each round too. Like playing this version of monk seems so interesting. You're all every turn you're like, okay, because the economy's gotten better. The economy's gotten better, but you are still balancing. What am I going to use my bonus action for?
Right. Yeah.
Am I going to spend a discipline point to enhance this ability? It's kind of, I like it a lot actually. And just the higher up you get in level, the more options you have.
Right. And then you mentioned the economy getting better. That was the third pain point for this monk. And it's really, really been fixed. we've talked about how uncanny metabolism gives you basically double your discipline points. So you can just kind of look at the monk and say, I have 4 at level 2 instead of having 2. And that's obviously not even including your short rest to get more back from there.
Yeah.
But now you also have all of these other options that you used to have to spend points on that are now just free. Patient defense, you can now use a free option for basically spend your bonus action, disengage for free, right? Step of the Wind, free option to do it with just bonus action, dash.
Yeah.
Nice and easy. Flurry of Blows kind of has that in the way that like your dexterous attack, or not your dexterous attack, your bonus unarmed strike in your first level feature basically is like a little Flurry of Blows. Kind of.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing of note, and this is where you're going to see some changes in some of those other subclasses, is now being able to take Step of the Wind for free makes every other feature that triggers off Step of the Wind better.
Yeah.
So those are going to have to kind of get reworded.
We'll see how they do it.
Right.
Because we're not going to see Monk again, you don't think?
We're not going to see any classes again.
Yeah.
This is the last UA that we're going to touch
get
on
the
classes.
book,
Yeah.
maybe some official test material, but not survey stuff, maybe?
No, I mean,
I know they said they're going to hint some stuff the closer we get, but you think that's more of the other books?
Well, yeah. I mean, so what's going to basically happen next? They said previously that the next UA 8 and 9, I don't remember if they included 10. It might be 8, 9, and 10, or it might have just been 8 and 9. We're going to be the last ones for the player's handbook. And then everything past that was going to start touching on the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monsters.
They got to do that eventually.
Right.
I mean, we got Bastions, but...
Right. So 8, right, handled the last of the classes. What we're probably going to get with 9 is spells and any other feats that they maybe want to touch on, even though they've done most of those.
Yeah.
So we're really probably going to be looking at like spell changes, and then maybe playtest 10 is another round of spell changes if there's anything else they need to do.
Right.
But that's pretty much all we're going to get.
We're pretty much there.
For the player's handbook.
Most of those tweaks are going to be behind closed doors.
Right.
We'll see the final version and how it all works together. In, you said summer, maybe?
I'm assuming summer. I could be wrong. It might be like a November drop. I have no idea.
Yeah.
My assumption.
I was going to say my guess was always August just to get that Gen Con release.
That could be it. We had to think of what does book take like.
Well, that's the thing. They've got their
printing schedules for
what, self-publishing now.
Yeah.
Anyone else is out?
I think so.
So but yeah, that's gonna be weird.
I don't know enough about the printing side of things to tell you. I feel like I remember reading somewhere that it takes them about 3 months from the finalized to print. So if we're seeing 2 more UAs that touch on, we'll probably see 1 more.
Maybe January.
Probably going to see that end of January, probably early February. And then they need to get the results from that, which will be like 2 weeks later. So they probably won't really have a final nailed down version until.
I wonder if we'll get another
maybe
mini
late
one,
March,
kind of like we did the Bastions and Cantrips, like
maybe
the middle of October, a couple weeks after the other one. But like I said, I don't think we'll see another in December.
No, we won't. Well, we won't. So yeah, I mean, if their last feedback for the player's handbook comes in, let's say April, right?
Right.
To be safe.
Sure.
And then there's a 3-month process from there: April, May, June, July. And you could probably see an August release. Actually, it wouldn't.
See?
It doesn't seem like completely out of left field.
End of July, early August. That's Gen Con.
Could be. I don't know. I love this monk. It's great. Let's get back to that. We talked about pretty much everything in terms of the base class as far as the real big and important things. Obviously, there are a few other smaller things like Stunning Strike now doing force damage on a successful save. One of the big complaints, right, was that if Stunning Strike doesn't work, you're kind of just screwed.
No, you're still doing an attack.
Right. Now you're still doing damage.
Yeah.
Actually, you're doing more damage than a regular attack. So you're not spending that key point for nothing.
Right.
Right.
It's an enhanced strike either way.
And then the other like main changes came to the level 14, 15, and 18 and 20. Actually, all of the higher level features, right? Specifically like Disciplined Survivor at 14 and Superior Defense at 18, both essentially got the same change, which is they used to require bonus actions. So they conflicted with all of your discipline options, or with your unarmed strike attack that you could use as a bonus action.
Yeah. Now
it's just whenever you end your turn, right? You can remove what am I thinking of here? Oh, I'm sorry, of self-restoration, not Disciplined Survivor. Self-restoration and Superior Defense. So now whenever you end your turn, right, you can just
choose a condition.
remove one of those conditions that
Yep.
you're affected by. Or whenever you start your turn, you can spend discipline points and for a minute just become resistant to all damage except for force. So now instead of having to do those actions, they're just at the start of the turn, at the end of the turn.
Right.
It's a much better, elegant way to kind of fix that action economy issue.
And I'm at least I was gonna say I'm excited for new players to be like choice paralysis, but you're level 10. By now you're like, okay.
And it's not even choice paralysis though. That was the problem, is that like choice
Sorry,
paralysis.
not necessarily choice paralysis. More of like, okay, at the end of my turn, and how many of these are you gonna have stacked up a turn?
Just how many to
Like,
remember.
I gotta do this. I gotta do this.
Right.
Oh, I can do this. Wait, I forgot it. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that like something like self-restoration makes a lot of sense to like, you're going to remember that anyway, because it's only going to come in
Your
if you're
GM's gonna remind you
charmed
too.
or frightened or poisoned. Like, you know, if that condition's there, you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I have something for this.
Yep.
Right. Maybe for perfect discipline, you'll be like, but by that, you're level 15.
Right.
By that time, you should know what you're doing. But that being said, I've played level 20 campaigns, like literally from 1 to 20, where, you know, some players are casual players. They're not going to know everything about their character. So that's just kind of where
Shame on you. No.
That's just kind of where you as a DM has to be like, hey, remember you have this in case you need it.
Don't worry, I'm the DM. I remember everything all the time. I'll never forget any of your character names or sheets or choices or abilities or anything else. I'm never gonna have to look up a rule, monster stats, anything. I got you. I know it all.
Is that a lie?
Yeah, it's a lie.
That's what I thought.
Please remember. Please know how your character
Please
works.
know how
You're
your
gonna know it
character
better than me.
The other thing I really want to talk about in the main class before we go to the subclass is the new capstone.
Wait, we forgot the most important thing, or maybe you said it and I completely glossed over it.
Probably.
Poison resistance, immunity. It's gone.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that a big part
I
of
can't chug poison, Garrett.
So being resistant or being immune to the poison condition, right,
Yeah.
is almost not needed anymore, because
No,
now
I
at the
agree.
end of your turn, you can just be like, I'm not poisoned anymore.
Yeah.
I
entirely agree with you, but dang it, I wanted to be upset about something.
That's fair. Right, I guess. Yeah, if there's anything to be upset by in this, is that this wasn't the playtest 6 version of it. This isn't what we got on playtest 6. This is what we should have gotten earlier.
Ooh, but what would they change for playtest 8?
Maybe nothing. Maybe it'd have been fine. We don't know.
No, we had to be upset for them to fix this, because I've saw a lot of community feedback that mentioned some of these changes, and it's cool seeing it. It feels like they took our words of redirection and encouragement into making a class we love together as a community.
Sure, that's how you want to put it.
They took a lot of that in feedback and put it into this.
I think what you mean is they took a lot of the bitching online.
Wow, I gotta bleep another word.
And they turned it into a great class. The other thing I want to talk about, obviously, is the capstone. Have we talked about the capstone? Can we talk about the capstone?
Please do.
Okay, this went from the worst.
Yeah.
This went from the worst capstone in the game in the 2014 version.
Oh God.
To maybe the best. Actually, no, I think it's undisputably the best. Like, I don't think that there's any capstone that matches this in the current playtest version.
Isn't there another one that shares a similar one?
There is. So the new capstone was at least introduced what this is, right? It's the body and mind capstone, right? So now your dexterity and wisdom scores just increase by 4 each.
Which is so good.
And up to a maximum of 26. There's a reason it's 26 and not 24, and that's because the level 19 ASI can boost one of your stats to 22.
Yep.
So now you can boost it all the way to 26 with body and mind. This is also something that they did with the barbarian, but they forgot to change that.
That's what it was.
Right? The barbarian has the same feature, but for strength and constitution. The last time we saw them in the playtest, it just increased by 4 to a max of 24, not realizing that there was another way to boost it. So
ASI changed.
But now it is changed in this playtest document. So the barbarian now also has the 26.
Hey.
So here's why this
is great for both.
It's great for both, but here's why this one's better than the barbarian one, and it's the best in the game. I think the barbarian was the best in the game previously.
Yeah.
Because it's just you're adding to your attacks, you're adding to your damage, you're adding to your health pool, you're adding to your constitution or to your AC.
Yeah.
The barbarian one was just a huge buff for barbarians. This one's better because not only does dexterity attribute to your your damage into your attack rolls like it does with the barbarian, but it also attributes to AC. And it's also a better save.
Dexterity saves are great all the time.
Exactly. And wisdom, right, is doing the same thing. It's contributing to your DC, it's contributing to your AC, or to your AC, it's just such a much, and it's also, again, it's probably the third best, maybe the second best saving throw.
With evasion, oh my gosh, so you're dodging everything.
So yeah, so now you're looking at a monk who, if you're doing this the right way and you're making sure your stats are as high as they can be by the time that you get there, you're looking at a monk whose AC by level 20, well, what is that? So it's 14 with your proficiency bonus, and then you are going to add a plus 5, 6, 7, 8 plus another set. Like you're looking at like what, 22 AC, somewhere around there.
It's pretty good.
I think it's a 22 AC at level 20, which is huge. I mean, that's great for just being a natural, like, and that's not including
what it is,
rings of protections or cloaks of protections or any other like brace of defense, all those other things that boost your AC. That's great on top of everything else that it does. So I think this capstone is great. And the previous one,
and it's nothing too especially level
too busy.
Yeah, exactly. 2014 version stuff, like some classes it feels like just get nothing. Right. And then others, it's just there's so much.
The 3 ones that got like basically nothing in 2014 were the monk, the bard, and the sorcerer, because they all basically got the same thing, which is if you start your turn or you start initiative, you regain
this many
a D4 of your sorcery points. You regain a use of bardic inspiration. You regain a D4 of your key points. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Now they get those types of features way earlier. The old, capstone was basically their level 15 feature, right? So that's now coming earlier.
Yep.
And now this is actually giving you something that's going to improve your class in a way that the other one just didn't do. It just didn't help.
You can't avoid it. This just helps you.
It's all great. It's all great.
You can't mess this up as a player.
By the way, the bard and the sorcerer subclasses, capstone for their classes, also great.
Yeah.
Like they have made all of the capstones so much better than what they used to be.
Yeah.
So
10 years of knowledge. It's worked out well for them.
And a lot of player
feedback. More bleeps.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Do you actually bleep those?
Yes.
Oh, oops. I'm actually just making this worse for you.
No, it's fine. I just got to bleep like 3 words. It's okay.
It's okay.
I'm keeping track in here, which means I won't remember and have to listen to the whole episode again.
I promise I won't do another one.
I don't believe you.
You shouldn't. Okay. Do you want to talk about that?
I thought it was just a curse or something.
No, yeah, of course. Curse right now.
Okay. You want to get into this, our new take on Worry the Hand.
Okay,
Is that right?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay.
What do you think about this subclass?
So, like I think we already touched on it a bit. Originally, we weren't big fans, and now
originally it sucked.
Yeah,
it did.
I'm gonna skip ahead to something really quick. Where is it? I really like the way they're handling Quivering Palm with this version of it doesn't instant kill people.
Right. So I'm actually going to pull up the old version right now if I can get my phone to work. It's decided to stop on me in the middle of this.
That's how it goes.
Of course, it's how it goes.
We're in a metal box when we record these.
Previously with Quivering Palm, right? It was an action, so it replaces pretty much everything that you were doing for that turn, and it was basically a save or die type of mechanic. It was if they don't make this save, then they are going to literally drop to 0.
Yeah.
Here we go. I finally pulled it up. 3 key points, right? And then you hit somebody, you give them this vibrations throughout their body, and then you can end those vibrations as an action. And if you do so, that creature has to make a con save, or it just goes to 0 hit points. And if it doesn't go to 0 hit points, it instead takes 10d10 necrotic damage. A lot of people really liked this because of the theme.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people love the idea of that that kill punch that you might see in anime or martial arts films or wherever the case may be. Yep. People love the idea of this. Here's the problem with it though, is that in actual gameplay, Constitution saves are the best saves you're going to find against creatures. Like they are saves that are going to be proficient for all of the monsters you're facing. So the monsters are more likely.
your con is usually up there.
Right. And so creatures, if you're trying to do this against a dragon, you have no chance, right? And obviously, too, on top of that, legendary resistances basically means they're going to save against it almost every time. So what this really amounted to was spend 3 key points to do 10d10 necrotic damage.
Yeah.
Right? And hopefully maybe they'll drop to 0 if they fail randomly. But that's really what it did. So now what it does is when you hit the creature, same thing. It's now 4 discipline points instead of 3 key points, which is a little bit different.
But still, I mean, at this point, you've got quite a bit of these and you've got ways to get them back.
Right. Now, instead of dropping to 0, it's just straight up 10d12 force damage on a failed save, half as much on a successful one. So that's a huge nerf, right? 6d12 force damage, or not, sorry, not 6, 5d12 force damage. A d12 is averaging what, 6.5 damage? I'm gonna have to do a calculator math real quick.
No, you've I don't even have a phone today, so
6.5 times 5. So on average, this is gonna do 32.5 extra damage when they succeed, which they're still gonna do most of the time, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's extra damage.
By comparison, the old version would do about 55 on a failed save. So it's literally like 20 points less damage. Yes, that in a way is a nerf.
Sure.
Here's how it's still okay, though. Because previously, it took your whole action to do this. Instead, now, you can just do it as one of your attacks.
Yep.
And previously, the old 2014 monk would have to use the attack action if it wanted to flurry or use an unarmed strike attack as a bonus action. So what you would do in the previous version was spend an entire turn doing 55 damage, basically.
Setting it up and then knocking
doing
it down.
that 55 damage.
Maybe.
That was your whole action.
Yeah.
Now, that 35-ish damage is one of your possible 5 attacks.
Yep.
So you're still going to hit them 4 more times this turn.
You hit them, you activate it.
Which means you're probably doing more damage overall than Quivering Palm was doing in the 2014 version. So it's like kind of a buff. Like, I understand people are going to look at this and think, this is not as impressive because I'm not rolling as many dice, or this is not as impressive because I can't hit them and drop them to 0. But any monster that was really going to get dropped to 0, you weren't going to do anyway. Like, it was going to be small things.
You're going to get them there faster now.
Right. Now, you're going to do this once, they're going to succeed, and you're going to still do a bunch of damage, and then you're going to hit them 5 more times.
Yeah, and you're never going to feel like you wasted your turn.
Exactly. It's so much better than the old version. And I think that people maybe don't realize that until they start really remembering, like, just how many times you can hit somebody in the face.
It does sound more impressive the other way. Just
right, it does.
Anything that's like...
But then in play, it just didn't work.
Right.
Right. In play, it just doesn't work the same way. So I don't know. I really like the new version of the Quivering Palm. Specifically because of the way that it interacts with the base class changes. And that's true of everything. Like, I don't think open hand technique in 2014 is very good because you're having to always flurry blows to get it to work, which is hard to do if you're also spending key points on Stunning Strike in the base class and you don't have as many key points and you're not recovering them as quickly. So it was really just not very good. And also, it means you always had to use your bonus action, and you always had to attack with your regular action because you couldn't flurry if you didn't take the attack action. Well, now all of that's different. You can now flurry and do something else completely if you wanted to with your action, like activate a magical weapons item, right? Using a magic action, or whatever the case may be. You can...
I always forget it's magic action now.
Right, yeah, it's a little different. And also, another thing with the old version of the open hand monk that wasn't very good is the level 3 feature basically conflicted with every other feature in the subclass, right? The wholeness of body feature is a bonus action. It still is a bonus action. And it was a bonus action previously, if I remember correctly. No, actually, sorry. It was a full action in the old version.
Even better.
So yeah, it was even worse. So yeah, it also conflicts because it doesn't allow you to flurry because you didn't get to use your action to actually take the attack action. And then their level 11 feature was a tranquility feature, which was like this weird sanctuary spell thing, was whatever. And then we already talked about a Quivering Palm doesn't work with flurry of blows in the old version. So your level 3 feature solely focuses on flurry, and then all your other features don't really interact with it very well. Now, right, Wholeness of Body is still a bonus action now, and it's still not that great, so we're not going to talk about that one. But now their 11th level feature, Fleet Step, right, says whenever you take a bonus action to do anything other than Step of the Wind, you can also Step of the Wind. So now it works directly with Open Hand Technique, because when you're Flurry, you can still Step of the Wind and use other monk features.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? Your Quivering Palm now works with Open Hand Technique because it's not replacing your attack action, it's one of them. And even if it did replace your attack action, that doesn't matter anymore because Flurry doesn't need the attack action.
Right.
So the whole subclass got improved because the base class changed. Even if this subclass didn't change all that much, other than the level 11 feature, which is really cool. Wholeness of Body is the one thing I do want to talk about with this monk. I don't particularly like it. It's not great.
It's something.
It's certainly something. It is a bonus action to roll 1 martial arts die and regain hit points equal to that plus your wisdom modifier. Your martial arts die at level 6 when you get this feature is a D8. So that's looking at like about 4.5 on average. That's going to scale up to 6.5 on average with a D12. 6.5 plus wisdom modifier, which up until level 20 is at best 5.
Yeah.
This is like 11 health, and you can do it 3 to 5 times a day. It's not great.
I think it's okay.
I would never use this in combat. This is something that I would only ever do the moment a fight ends. I would just burn all of these until I get to full health.
It's I mean, it's what? So it's like a mini second wind.
It's worse though because it's not adding monk
you get it level 6.
Yeah, you get it. You get it 5 levels later than second wind.
Yeah.
It doesn't add your actual class level. It just adds the modifier. So it's just
why doesn't it add the class level?
Probably because it'd just be a lot of healing on top of that. Like,
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but like we already talked about how the base class has some healing options in it. I just feel like Wholeness of Body should have I don't know, increased the healing of your heightened metabolism instead, or uncanny metabolism.
Sure.
Like, or maybe it should, I don't know.
I mean, and even with the idea of like, okay, maybe it'd be a lot of healing. It's bonus action. You are fighting for bonus action, unless you get.
That's the other thing about it is like I don't ever want to use this in combat because it's bonus action. Maybe if they change that and they like remove the bonus action requirement
at the start of the round.
At the start of the round, you can choose to do this.
Yes.
Or you
just totally like
right.
I've got so many of these a day.
Then I wouldn't be mad about 10
okay, at the start of my turn, I'm going to go ahead and roll this really quick. Okay, I got 5 healing back.
Because I'm never going to want to use a bonus action to do this.
No.
At all.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, so that would be better. Or if one suggestion that I saw on, it was a YouTube channel. I believe it was Treant Monk.
There's so many.
Right. I think it was Treant Monk and D4 Deep Dive or something like that. A D&D Deep Dive, whatever. They did a combo video talking about the monk. And one of them suggested doing this ability, but you can heal other people with it, almost like a lay on hands.
Ooh.
I would love that.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. Either way, that would fix it. Currently as it is, it's just not very good.
Right.
But if that's the only problem I have with the monk in this entire document, I'm happy.
Whole document, one feature out of a subclass is the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of subclasses that don't have like great features all the way through. Like it'll be fine. It'll be okay. I do want to talk about real quick.
I thought you were going to say the addle option.
The addle option did change. Yeah, that was nice. So they used to, in the playtest 6 version, they changed the addle option to require a saving throw and to only work with opportunity attacks. So in the old version, 2014 version, works with reactions as a whole. Now it doesn't require a saving throw again, which is good because their saving throw thing was bad.
Yeah.
And it still only works with opportunity attacks.
Which is still good. I mean, you were just throwing this on when you land a flurry of blows.
Right. It still only works with opportunity attacks, and that's because anyone who's been paying attention knows that
the higher level
legendary actions are almost shifting to be reactions rather than just free things.
Look at Vecna.
In Monster Decline. Vecna is a great example. I actually ran, I just got done doing a level 1 through 20 Eberron campaign. I know Eberron doesn't normally have Vecna, but long story short, they destroyed Eberron.
D&D. Do whatever you want.
They destroyed Eberron in a really weird way, and they had to go fix it by going through the different planes, and they fought Vecna at part of it. Point is, Vecna has like 3 reactions a turn.
And they use Shock and Grasp.
And no, they did not.
Okay.
But they got their butts kicked by Vecna. The good news for them was that they weren't here to kill Vecna. They were trying to steal something. So they did steal it. But they were getting trounced by Vecna. Anyone who says Vecna's not a great stat block, try running it because My players were also using like homebrew god rules because they were kind of all becoming deities. It was weird. But the point is,
a fun game.
It was such a fun game. In fact, the reason that they went, just a quick little tangent aside.
No, let's do it.
They went
We still got like 20 minutes.
They went to Vecna's tower to steal an Atropol, which is like a little baby death god that Vecna was cultivating. Because stealing the death god and then killing it and absorbing the soul was how the Phantom Rogue was going to become a deity. And the whole point was they were all trying to become deities so that they could all then put Eberron back together.
Okay.
Right? So
that's a cool premise.
At this point in time, there was like two of the players, the ranger and the cleric, were both deities, and they were both doing a lot of like deity things where they had like extra spells and extra abilities and extra effects and unlimited features in some ways. Long story short, even with those buffs, Vecna still kicked all of their butts.
Dang.
And like, it's just,
I mean, hey, as Vecna should.
As Vecna should. So play with that stat block. It's great. But the point is like that type of stat block where it has like 3 reactions a turn. That's the reason why these don't shut off reactions as a whole. And that's the reason why Shocking Grasp doesn't shut off reactions as a whole anymore, because it's now becoming a little bit too powerful to shut off a whole reaction when legendary creatures are doing multiple of those, right? So taking a tap of opportunity away makes a little bit more sense.
I agree.
I still think the Addle option is the worst of the 3. I'm going to push and topple people every chance I get.
I can see so many ways to like make that good and around though. I guess not all the time. It's situational for sure.
Yeah,
You've got 3 options, but if your group needs to get away from someone, if it's not just you stuck there, I guess
it has to be somebody else, because you can disengage for free.
Right.
So it has to be something else.
So if someone else is there with you, you want to get out of dodge. You're like, go.
Yeah, this is the thing. You're going to see this too. One of the changes we didn't talk about in the base class that much is how now your grapple and shove checks are working off dexterity modifier instead of strength. So now,
we did skip over that.
Monks are really good grapplers in 1D&D, or in
grapple
whatever we're calling
entirely
this now.
from the 2014.
Right, now it's a saving throw that people have to make that you
rolls.
set a DC on, but now you can set it with your dexterity.
Awesome.
What's really cool about that is if you want to combine that with something like the grappler feat. So the new grappler feat, right, has 2 features that really make it great for monks. One is when you hit somebody with an armed strike, you can grapple them at the same time. Like you can do it both of them.
Awesome.
Because normally you have to give up that attack to grapple, right? So now you can do both. And the second is you can drag something that you're grappling with no movement penalty. I don't know if you know this about monks. They got a lot of movement.
Far.
They got a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So now you can, as a monk, and especially as a warrior of the hand, because you can also push them prone, right? Or topple them prone, right? Whatever. Which now they can't stand up, I think, if I remember correctly, unless the grapple. I actually got to go check the grapple condition because it might be different.
There's no time.
But it might be different. But the point is, you can just like grab these guys and then just run back and forth around the battlefield and just drag enemies with you. Like, do you watch Invincible? Have you ever watched Invincible?
Absolutely. Okay. I'm currently waiting for January to roll around because they're holding out episodes from me.
I'm going to need everybody here to just like skip ahead 15 seconds if you've never watched Invincible and you don't want to be spoiled about the very first episode.
Oh God, I'll put a spoiler warning on the screen and take it off on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, skip ahead, let's say 30 seconds.
Sure, 30 seconds is fine. Okay.
All right, go.
All right, so you know how in that fight with Omni-Man where he's massacring the Guardians of the Globe, right?
Yes.
You know how the beginning of that fight goes where Red Rush is moving people around and like blocking all the punches? You can do that now.
Right.
You can just start moving people.
Attacks.
If you take the grapple feat, you can just start grabbing enemies and moving them around. You can, use your Step of the Wind feature upgrade at level 10 that says you can just move your allies with you whenever you do Step of the Wind.
Invincible spoilers over. We're still going to keep talking.
Eventual spoilers, yeah. Now you can do exactly that same thing. You're just going around and you can move other people in the battlefield using your Step of the Wind or using grapple options. And that makes it really cool. Just the image of any sort of speedster manipulating the battlefield and keeping their, party alive or whatever the case may be. It's such a cool new way to like contextualize the monk that just didn't work before.
WotC made the mistake of allowing us to use the 2014 stuff too, because the Tabaxi. Oh man.
Well, the Tabaxi will be eventually updated. Actually, they got updated already in Monsters of the Multiverse. So, I mean, you could just use those rules because that's...
You're going to go so fast.
You're going to go so fast.
Woo!
Oh, man.
Don't worry, guys. I got him.
I just now, I want to know with this monk and like the speedster feat and a tabaxi, I want to know how insane you can make this work, because then you can do all of these different speed features on top of move and maneuver, like take the grapple feat and maneuver people around. I could imagine, like, if you really wanted to try and break this with magic items and support, you could make a build where this monk could just have such great speed that he could literally go around and maneuver like half of the people on the battlefield within like 2 turns.
This is what you're doing.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to use Step of the Wind and take my ally with me to put them over here with the discard group. And then I'm going to take the big bag evil guy and I'm going to grab him over here and just move him this way. It just seems like such a cool way to want to build like a speedster, which is something you can easily do here.
You get ambushed, you don't like your situation, you just fix it.
Right.
All right. You're going to fight him. You're going to fight him. I'm going to fight this one.
Take the alert feat, the new alert feat that says you could swap initiatives and just take whoever's highest initiative.
God, the alert feat's so good.
So that you're going first, or at least as close to first as possible in the round. And then, like, before everything sets up, you just say, hey, my paladin friend who doesn't have great speed, come on, I'm going to put you right next to the wizard in the back row. And then I'm going to go and take the big tough barbarian enemy, and I'm just going to grab him and I'm going to move with him to the end of this cliff, and then I'm just going to push him off with my push effect of my open hand technique. Like, it's such a cool visual. I really hope I get to try these out and see them in actual play.
Surprise rounds are going to be brutal for the DM if it's the other way around.
There's no surprise round in 5th edition, Tyler.
Did they get rid of this?
There never was a surprise round. There's no surprise condition. This is just me being technical, and I love it.
There was about 6 parts of a second where I was like, has there never been surprise? Did I make this up in my head? Am I thinking of another system?
No, it's great.
And then I caught on. Fine. In the round that the baddies were surprised due to a condition.
Is there anything
brutal?
Is there anything about this monk that you want to say about, like, is there anything missing here that seems obvious to you?
Oh God, obvious is the issue. There's things, like I said, there's things I'm excited for. Do you miss just base class, the weapon mastery? Do you think it's already good to go? I agree.
Yeah. I mean, because, like, look, if I really want it, I'll take a level in fighter, or I'll take the feat and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
If I really want it.
It is interesting to me that they have kind of walked it back a little bit with, like, hey, martial, if you're a martial, you get this weapon mastery, and then one test in, they're like, yeah, except this one.
I mean, this is the other thing to monks too, is like,
and I agree, they don't need it with this version.
The reason fighters have such good damage output is because they get all of those attacks over and over and over again, right? They're getting 3, 4 attacks, 5 if you're dual wielding type of stuff. The monk does more now. Like, the monk is doing even more attacks, and I don't want to step too much on the toes of it, but like, if you're giving the monk the weapon mastery and you give him Nick, now at level 10 they're doing 6 attacks.
Yeah.
That's a lot of attacks. It's a lot of attacks.
Just rolling dice over here, guys. Give me a minute.
Right. I mean, the fighter, with dual wielding and Nick would not get 6 attacks until level 20. Like 10 levels later. That's a lot. That's a big gap. So I don't mind it. Yeah. And again, if you're the monk, you still can do that, because all you got to do is take 1 feat and boom, now you've got it done. So I don't really mind that. What I think is missing, there are 2 things that I think are missing here. And they said they were going to add these, so I don't know if they just didn't do it for the playtest,
or if it's okay,
or if they forgot about it. But the Tasha's optional class features, there are 4 for the monk, and I'm looking them up right now. 2 of them are missing to me. The other 2 you don't even need, right? One of them was a 3rd level feature called Key Fueled Attack, which is if you spend a key for an action that's not the attack action, you can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action. You can already do that now. You don't need it anymore.
Gone. It
doesn't need us.
Don't need it.
And the other one was Quick and Healing at 4th level, which was spend 2 key to roll a martial arts die and regain that health. But that's now, it's not quite the same, but that's basically part of the uncanny metabolism feature. And also you're getting, temporary hit points with your updated patient defense. I don't think that's needed either.
Right.
The 2 I do want to see come back, right, are dedicated weapon, which they had at 2nd level, where you could basically use any weapon you are proficient in as a monk weapon. This really didn't matter for, maybe it won't matter for 1D&D because a lot of what this really was used for was like for species options.
Okay.
Where if you're playing like a Gith Yankee, right, and they have a longsword proficiency, you could now make that longsword a monk weapon using this ability.
Right.
I know they took that away from a lot of the species in 1D&D, so maybe this won't end up mattering,
Mm-hmm.
but it would still be nice for like, making sure monk weapons work with multi-classing, right? If I want to have a rapier for some reason, maybe that would work. So I could see that coming back. That'd be nice. And then the other one is focused aim, which is a 5th level feature. Basically was spend 1 to 3 key points to increase your attack roll by 2 per key point spent. It has to be discipline points now. That was a nice little just like extra benefit feature that they had, which I could see them maybe bringing back. Those are the only 2 things. I mean, other than that, I think if they printed this class as it was, I would be ecstatic.
Silly question.
Okay.
Do you think the monk is too good now, balance wise, with the new versions of other classes? Where do you think this shifts the power dynamic? There's always going to be a worse class. There's always going to be best class.
I don't think this is. I don't think this is too good. I don't think this is too good. I think that it is finally catching up.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
Do you think it's out of the bottom?
Yes.
You think it's mid? You think it's upper?
It depends on what we're talking about. So, like, if we're talking about,
we got to think about subclasses.
Or we're talking about all 12 classes.
Yeah.
In the game, I mean, it's still hard to
ballpark.
It's still hard to say that a martial class is better than a source, like a spellcasting class.
Right. Because of just the dynamic curve of
spells, which maybe will change with the spell changes that we're seeing. Maybe won't.
Yeah,
who knows?
I see that massive spell playtest. Maybe get some real changes.
In terms of the martials, which is I think
my baby True Strike.
Oh boy, shut up!
They took my baby.
Shut up!
And they made it too good.
They made it too good. Oh boy. Anyway, I don't even want to address that right now. In terms of the martials, though, right? If we're talking about monks up to next to like fighters, paladins, barbarians, rangers, rogues, I think that monk is probably, right up there with probably like fighter, or well, not fighter, probably like barbarian and ranger, kind of in that same range of like, really good martials. I think that paladin and fighter probably still are the best martials in the game. But I would put monk in there in that second tier, right?
Hey, that's great.
Which is way better than what it was.
So yes, that's
way better.
Yeah.
It went from like the worst class in the game to, I don't know, maybe like the 6th class in the game, which is middle of the pack, but also like, that's fine. I'm good with that.
I don't play enough games to be able to actually play all these new versions of classes I want to try out.
Right.
And I really do. I want to jump in with the monk. It's okay because I can look at some things, and we'll get to them in the next episode. We're going to touch on the druid and the barbarian in the next episode. I have wanted to. I'm like, okay, when this new druid comes out, I want to play it. I'm not necessarily sure I want to do that anymore. We'll get to that.
Really? Okay.
And barbarian, I think the barbarian's great. I could skip it.
Okay.
There's other ones that I'm like, this is exciting.
Sure.
Barbarian sounds great.
Mm.
I'm going to skip over that to play this monk.
Yeah, I could see that.
This monk sounds so fun.
I mean, so in terms of like classes in 1D&D, this is how I'm going to rank these classes.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to rank it as which class is the most excited to try.
Yes.
Because of all the changes.
Right.
And the monk is in the top 2. There's only one other class that I can even think of as like, I want to try that as much. And that's the sorcerer.
Oh.
Because I love the new innate sorcery feature that they have added and how it works throughout. So I really like that. So those are the 2 classes right now where I'm just like, I really want to try these 2 classes and see how all the changes.
I'm boring. I really want to try the new rogue. I like the way you spend your sneak attack die.
the cunning extract.
Yeah.
I think so. There's been some discussion, not to get too far off the monk stuff.
Free. This is what the show's for.
There's been some discussion online about how the rogue is actually like kind of falling behind.
Yeah.
Damage wise. And I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with that. Like, I don't think
people are still going to choose it.
I don't think rogues should be the most damage dealing class anyway, because they're skill monkeys and they're picking locks and disabling traps and they're doing things that other classes can't do.
You're not just glass cannon,
right?
You're very useful out of combat.
I want them to give like middle tier damage, and then high tier outside of combat utility.
I agree.
Which is I think something that they do, right?
Yeah. No, I think they do that well. And
so
they fit that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like with this new monk, I don't know what the worst class in D&D is. Like I don't know what it is. Some people would probably say like Ranger or Druid, but I think the Ranger and Druid in 1D&D look really good.
I was gonna say,
So
I think Rangers moved up. I think it's been up for a little bit now. I think this version of it is just even better.
I'm a little not concerned, but like intrigued, because they did say in one of their recent videos with Jeremy Crawford that
J. Craw,
that
fan of the show.
Sure, that Rangers were going to be like a weird amalgam of the what was it, playtest 2 or playtest 1 or it was either 2 or 3 version of the Ranger, and then the newest Ranger, like they're gonna like take the best features from both of them and put them all together.
Interesting.
I don't know how that's gonna turn out.
Yeah,
I would love to see that, but like,
we will.
Of all of the 1D&D classes, I think the Ranger is the one where you can look at it and be like, I'm not 100% sure what this is going to look like.
Ooh.
Everything else, I feel like you can see what it's going to look like by now. And the Ranger is the one I'm like, what's sticking around is what I want to know.
What's funny is, not that I want any class to be the worst, right? But if I had to pick just one that I would push to the bottom this time around,
oh boy,
it'd be Sorcerer.
No, but Sorcerer's so good. It was bad last time.
But Ranger can't be bad again.
Ranger
Monk can't be...
Okay, here's something I need to...
Objectively bad.
Objectively not bad. You're subjectively bad.
There we go. Subjectively bad.
The Ranger was never bad. The Ranger was just the most DM-dependent class.
Yeah.
And I get that's people are going to be like, well, that's why it's bad. I get it. If you're a DM who doesn't hate your players and you let the Ranger do Ranger stuff...
Guess where we're playing this campaign.
You're awesome. Right. Like, all you have to do is just have a conversation with the Ranger and be like, you might want to take this favorite enemy and this favorite terrain first, and then you can slowly level up from there.
They're like, no, I'm from the jungle. And then it's on your player's fault.
Right. Yeah, that's a different thing. But then also...
But it's Icewind Dale.
But it's not even just that. It's also that DMs don't... And this is also partially because the game doesn't do this. So it's not all... It is partially on the design. It's not... I'm not trying to blame players or DMs, but not enough DMs engage with the exploration aspect of D&D. Part of that is because exploration aspect of D&D is the most underserved of them, which I would love to see changed. Hopefully we will see it changed in the new DMG. But, I'd try doing a hex crawl, right, with, what's the Chult adventure? I'm sorry, Tomb of Annihilation. We had a Ranger in that. And the Ranger saved everybody's bacon a bunch.
I bet, yeah.
It was great. And that Eberron game I mentioned, the Ranger, right, in that game, using the new Tasha's alternate rules, which were a great boon.
Tasha's Ranger.
Right.
Good.
The new Tasha's Ranger, he was by far the biggest damage dealer in the party, right? And he was also doing just some of the most ridiculous stuff the whole way through, and the party had like an Artificer and a Rogue and a Cleric, a Twilight Cleric. And I still thought the Twilight Cleric, people are like, that's a busted subclass.
Very good subclass.
My Ranger outperformed the Twilight Cleric throughout the whole way through. Right. Obviously the temporary hit points it's not like they were giving out healing or anything like that. But in terms of combat effectiveness, I think the Ranger was the MVP of that game.
Really?
Yeah. The Ranger one-on-one a high level boss in the game. Like at level 17, one-on-one to boss. And I was like, how did the hell did you do that? And like, that's the thing, is like people say the Ranger was bad. It's not that it was bad. Honestly, it was just that it was boring. And that was its biggest sin, I guess, is the best way to put it. But hey, it looks like it's changed. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what this amalgamation looks like. But enough about all those other classes.
Yeah.
Anything else in closing thoughts for Monk before we wrap this up to start filming the next one? And that's right, folks. Next week's episode is going to be start off immediately when this one ends. So yeah, if we don't look any different, that's why. Monks.
My last thought, please don't kill me for this, all you Mercy Monk fans, is that they need to nerf the Mercy Monk.
Really?
Because the level 11 ability for the Mercy Monk, the way that it stacks with the new heightened flurry of blows, is just maybe a little too good. It's just a little good. It really outperforms pretty much every other monk in the game, which the Mercy Monk already did. That's the thing, is like the Mercy Monk, when Tasha's introduced it, I think everyone looks at that and says it was a little overtuned. And the reason it was overtuned is because the monk was bad.
Yeah.
And they were like, we need to make a heightened version of this subclass, or else no one's going to want to play anything.
This is the quickest way we can fix this right now.
Right. Now that the monk is good, they maybe just need to take the Mercy Monk down a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But everything else, we're on the right track with everything else.
All right,
Sorry.
looking good then.
Sorry, Mercy fans.
So I guess we'll wrap this up. We'll get into, well, like I said, in a week for you guys and a couple minutes for you and me, Barbarian and Druid. So make sure you come back next week for that. Well, for now, Garrett, where can people find you?
Oh, I hate when you do this.
I'm gonna do it next episode too. So
I am on X at Garrett KP. I don't ever tweet there though. So
but you can find him.
Is it still called tweeting now? I don't even know.
I think it's tweeting until they call it Xing, which
Xing,
doesn't sound any better.
Xing. Oh boy. And then I'm also on Instagram at Garrett KP22.
Ooh.
Also never post there except for
Untrue.
sometimes food stuff.
Often delicious meals.
Okay.
Foodie dream on Instagram.
I don't know about a dream, but anyway, thank you.
Okay, it's at least my dream. These meals look amazing. Well, yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. YouTube, like the things. Podcast, do the things. But for now, I've been Tyler.
I've been Garrett.
And
Not Richard.
True Strike.
I missed that, didn't
Richard.
I should have done that, huh?
Oh, you're good.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, adventurers. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Threads or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.